What if the NBA used the college football playoff format? Look, I'm not a big fan of the NBA Cup, so let's put a twist on it and let's have some fun. All right, if you didn't know, the college football playoffs give 5 different automatic bids or automatic spots to conference champions. Now, in the NBA, we don't have conference champions, and if we did conference champions, it would just be 2 people in the tournament. So let's expand it a little bit here in the NBA. There is 6 different divisions, of course, in the NBA, and I said, okay, best record in each division gets an automatic bid into this hypothetical playoff. So in the Atlantic Division, we have the Boston Celtics, who, of course, widely considered the best team in the league. The Cavaliers, I'm a Cavs fan. We are 21-4. We are going to get the Central Division. And the Southeast is the Orlando Magic. But despite all their injuries, unfortunately, today we're going off current day rosters. So Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero are not going to be making their way into this hypothetical tournament. In the Western Conference, the OKC Thunder, the Golden State Warriors, and the Grizzlies, who I was high on before the season, they all are winners of their division, and they are going to get all of the top 6 seeds in this tournament. Now, the next 2 seeds, the 7 and 8 seed, are basically, to me, who are the best 2 teams that aren't winning their division at current time at this point in time. I think that's the Houston Rockets and that's the New York Knicks. 2 very uber talented defenses that have the offensive firepower to get them over the top. 2 great coaching staffs as well. So they are going to be the 7th seed in the Houston Rockets, and the 8th seed is the New York Knicks. Now, who is the 9th seed? The 9th seed to me is a team that could have been the 8th seed, right? I did my power rankings just a week ago, and the New York Knicks were 1 spot ahead of this number 9 seed. So I think that stays packed. I think the Dallas Mavericks are going to get the 9 seed. And the only reason I revealed the 9 seed is because, well, it's oh so close. So here's an updated look at the bracket. Now, keep in mind here, seeds 1 through 8 will get a home court advantage in their first game of this playoff. The Dallas Mavericks, of course, are not. They're on the road here against the New York Knicks in round number 1. But there's 3 spots left. Who is going to get those 3 spots? This is what I did. I wanted to look at, of course, record, played a big part into it. But I wanted to look at those 5 or 6 teams that had an argument to be in the mix. And I wanted to say, who do I think has had the better start to the season? Pretty simple. Now, at number 10, I'm going to go with the Milwaukee Bucks. Believe it or not, this was like the worst team in the league in the first 10 games of the season. But outside of that, since then, they are 8-2. They're 12-11 on the season. And I don't know how, but they're finding a way. Doc Rivers has actually been a decent coach over the last 10 games or so. And it's just Giannis and Dame putting the team on their back, doing everything they can. And, of course, they're getting good minutes from the pieces around them. So they will get the number 10 spot despite the terrible start to the season. At number 11, I'm going to go with the LA Clippers, man. Despite no Kawhi Leonard, Ty Lue is putting on a coaching masterclass, and we're getting a breakout year from a 31-year-old in Norman Powell, his best year of his career. Came out of nowhere, right? But sometimes, like he said, sometimes less is more. Now, James Harden, it's so fun to watch him play because, sure, he's not putting up the same numbers as he was in Houston, but I think his impact is nearly similar to this LA Clippers team that it was when he was with Houston, of course, for all those MVP years. James Harden is back to being James Harden, and I'm excited to see how Kawhi Leonard is brought back into the mix. Kawhi Leonard might actually want to take a secondary role to how James Harden has this offense going at this point in time. But 14-11 on the year, they will be the number 11 seed. At number 12, it came down to 2 teams, the Miami Heat or the Denver Nuggets. To you, let me know in the comments, who do you think's had the better start to the season? To me, this might be my Alabama SMU moment. I'm going to lean into the brand a little bit. And I'm going to lean into what history tells us. Last year, this was a team that was a top 8 team in the league. They won the title 2 years ago. And sure, do they have depth questions? Yes. But by far and away, they're the best player in the world. And I want to throw them into this conversation. The Denver Nuggets are going to get the 12th seed at 12-10 on the year, 500 in their last 10. Not a great year, right? I mean, it's been very up and down for the Denver Nuggets, but they're the best player in the world. And Jokic, I mean, over the last 2 games has had over 100 total points by his lonesome, which is the first center to do it since Wilt Chamberlain. So they will get the number 12 seed. For my visual people out there over on YouTube, here is the bracket, of course, seeds 1 through 8, and here is 9 through 12. So you see all of the first round matchups, and of course, the Cavaliers, the Celtics, the Thunder, and the Grizzlies will get a first round bye in this tournament. Now, let me clarify. In this scenario, right? It's going to be a 1 game setting for every single game, just like the college football playoff in real life. So again, it should be fun. Let's get into it. Let's start here with that 5-12 matchup between the Orlando Magic at home versus the Denver Nuggets. Now, Orlando would come into this matchup being the best team in the league at defending centers by a wide margin. So, whether if he dominates or not, Jokic is going to have a tough game, and we're going to have to take that fatigue into account going forward into the tournament. But this is an Orlando team that's 10-0 at home. They've had 2 All-NBA players playing at the way that they were go down to injury at some point in the year. And last year in this matchup, they were 2-0. Now, again, they were fully healthy with Paolo Banchero and, of course, Franz Wagner. Now, Denver would come into this game, not the greatest team on the road, all right, as I'll say that. But, like I mentioned, Jokic has been on a scoring tear, doing everything he can just to beat a team like the Wizards in recent games. But this is a team that I've talked about in depth, and I have said that they are the 2018 Cavs reincarnated. And if you want further explanation, let me know in the comments. But the question for this game and for every game going forward in this tournament for the Nuggets is, can they get enough around Jokic, right? Now, if Franz Wagner, all right, it was in this conversation, I would say, hey, look, the Mavericks are going to, or the Magic are going to win this game. But they don't have Franz Wagner. So I'm going to go with the Nuggets. I think they get a first-round upset win. Of course, like I mentioned, I think if they have Paolo or Franz or both, I think it's ugly for the Nuggets. But since they don't have their 2 All-NBA level players, I will give the edge to the 4-time MVP, hopefully, in Nikola Jokic. Now, let's get into the 8-9 matchup. The 8-9 matchup is the New York Knicks and the Dallas Mavericks in the top left of your screen. Now, New York, they're 8-3 at home on the year. Dallas, of course, comes into this game, and we have the storyline of Jalen Brunson versus his mentor, in a way, in Luka Doncic. Of course, they were teammates for a couple years there in Dallas. But for New York, your pros here is that you have the defense to match up with anybody, and you have the continuity that's growing here in this core there in New York. So they're a team that's gonna play everybody hard. And if Jalen Brunson has a good offensive night, it's hard to imagine anybody can beat them in a 1-game setting, especially at home. Now, for Dallas, you've won the last 3 matchups against the New York Knicks, and 2 of those games were without Luka Doncic, dating back to last season. Now, you won one this year without Luka Doncic, so that, of course, is worth note. But this is a team that is 8-5 on the road, and Dallas is actually a top 3 team on the road this season in the NBA. So, I think it's going to be a fun matchup when you include even last year's Dallas Mavericks team versus this year's New York Knicks team. But I think the X factor in this game is going to be Klay Thompson, a guy that last year with the Warriors, mind you, but in both of the games that they played in 2024 and on against the Knicks, he was averaging 17 points a game, averaging about 50 to 55% from 3. So Klay Thompson is, again, I know the Knicks have added another piece on the wing, but he does pretty good when he's in Madison Square Garden. So in this matchup, again, 1-game scenario, going to be tough. Defense versus Luka and Kyrie. I'm going to give the edge to Luka and Kyrie and the Dallas Mavericks. You're going to see as this tournament goes on, it's very hard to imagine a team can beat them in a 1-game setting. Now let's move over to the right side of the bracket with the Houston and Milwaukee matchup. And boys, this is fun. For Milwaukee and Houston, they've played 1 time this year. Milwaukee is 1-0 this year, and it was a close game. It was 101 to 100, I think, in the NBA Cup, which again I'm not a big fan of. But for Houston, you have the home court advantage here. You're 9-3 at home on the year, and you have a great defense. I think honestly, you might have a top 3 defense in the league. You're the second best defense against power forwards across most of the metrics, and you're just about below average against point guards. Now, I bring up the power forward and point guard position for obvious reasons. Damian Lillard and Giannis are on the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, for Milwaukee, I think when you look at the matchups last year and even this year, over the last 3 games, Giannis is averaging 31 points and 17 rebounds a game against this Houston Rockets core. Now, again, I think the Rockets come into this matchup with either the mindset of we're going to build a wall or we're just going to make Giannis beat us and lock down everybody else around him. And I think that's going to be a very key part of this game. Who can come out on top, right, in a matchup like this if the bench pieces and the surrounding pieces around Giannis are not producing the way that they should. Now, Chris Middleton would be back for this matchup. Of course, he's returning in real life. But I just think that too much is in favor of Houston in this matchup. I think they have the defensive versatility. And I think unless Damian Lillard and Giannis come out and both drop 40 to 50 points in this one-game scenario, at Houston, I'm going to go Houston here. I think they have a huge head coaching advantage with Ime Udoka. And speaking of them, look at that. Storyline number 2. Ime Udoka will play his old team in the second round of this tournament. Now, in the 6-11 matchup, look, it's a rivalry that's going to go on forever. James Harden versus the Dynasty Golden State Warriors, led by Stephen Curry and Draymond. No Klay Thompson now, so a little bit of a different look there for James Harden against a team that he's had a long history with. But for James Harden, look, he's playing really good. I talked about it before. I love the way that this Clippers team is playing this year. I think Zubac has a huge series here against the Warriors. But at the end of the day, the Warriors just always find a way to guard Harden. There's no other team better at guarding Harden than the Golden State Warriors. I think this offense not relying so much on Steph Curry anymore. I think it's a huge plus. And I think in a one-game scenario, if you need Steph Curry to be Superman, he can do that. So I like the defense of Golden State. And again, they're at home, like the Warriors in that one. So now we're moving on to the second round. We have the 1-9, of course, in the Cavaliers and Mavericks, and the Grizzlies and the Nuggets on the left side of the bracket. We'll get back to the right in just a moment. All right, here for this 1-9 matchup, I think the storyline is going to be the battle of the guards. On the Cavaliers side, I'm a Cavs fan again. We have Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, two guys that are playing at all NBA levels this season, if not all-star levels for Darius Garland. For the Mavericks, look, you have Kyrie and Luka. So this is going to be 4 star-studded guards in a singular game. It's going to be a lot of fun, in the hypothetical matchup. Now, last year, we were robbed of these talented players in this matchup because on the Cavaliers side, they won the game, right? They won the game without Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, and Evan Mobley. Jared Allen found a way to get it done. I remember that game vividly. But on the flip side, Kyrie was by himself. There was no Luka or Daniel Gafford in that matchup for the Mavericks. So a lot of players were missing, so we can't really take that game into account when I try and look at previous matchups. Now, in this matchup, again, as when we talk about the battle of the guards, the Cavaliers, they're not at full strength. Of course, we're missing some guys like Max Strus and some other wing defenders, but for the Cavaliers, we're the 12th best defense against guards this season. Now, the Mavericks, it's a bit of a shocker, but they're the best defense at guarding guards this season with guys like PJ, of course, harassing them on the wing. Now, the Cavaliers are 13-1 at home. They are 6-4 in their last 10. So they are, I guess, coming back to reality just a little bit. But for Dallas, you're 8-5 on the road. I think, again, the guards, they're going to be guards. They're going to have fun. This is going to be a high-scoring guard shootout. But I think the difference in this game and the X factor in this game is Evan Mobley. Now, Evan Mobley, of course, he just had a 40-piece in his last game against the Charlotte Hornets. And I think that there's nobody on this Dallas Mavericks team that can guard a guy like Evan Mobley when he's got it going. Same can be said about Jared Allen. But I just think at the end of the day, I'm a Cavs fan. If there's anybody that's going to underrate them, I'm okay with it being me. And I think in a one-game scenario, I don't know who's going to guard Kyrie for one. But outside of that, if we can lock down Kyrie, who's going to guard Luka Doncic? I don't know. I think the Mavericks are going to win that one. Again, I'm a Cavs fan. I'd love to see it. I know I've said that 100 times, but I think, again, if there's anybody to underrate their own team, I think I'm one of those that would do that. And again, Luka Doncic is, let's not forget, arguably the best player in the world. In the 4-12 matchup, we have the Memphis Grizzlies, who I was super high on before the season, and I was called crazy, but here we are. They're the top 3 seed in the Western Conference. They're 11-3 at home, again, in this matchup, and they host the Denver Nuggets, who are 500 on the road. Again, that kind of defines their season so far. Memphis this year is top 5 in the league against guarding centers, but on the flip side, again, Denver is about a league average defense all around. So a lot of the signs point to Memphis winning this matchup. Again, this is a matchup where they're 1-1 this season, but in both of those games, there was no Jokic in both of them and no Ja in ones, right? Or in both of them. So in both of the games that these teams have played this year, two of the biggest puzzle pieces weren't in the games. So again, you can't really take too much into account about how that matchup went. But all the signs point to Memphis winning this one. You're at home. You're a better defensive team. You got Ja Morant. Nobody can guard him on the Denver Nuggets side of things. At the end of the day, though, man, I think it's the same argument as the Cavs and the Mavericks. I think it comes down to a one-game scenario. Do I think Zach Edey is going to be able to stay in the game long enough to guard a guy like Nikola Jokic? And if not, okay, I think Jokic is going to put Jaren Jackson Jr. in foul trouble with how block happy he is. And I think at the end of the day, no one's going to be there to guard Nikola Jokic, right? So at the end of the day, I think it's going to be just the best player in the world wins the game. And again, I love the Memphis Grizzlies. I had them again as a top 3 seed in the West coming into the season. I think they're playing a lot better than I thought they would to start the year. I thought they'd be a second half heater. But in this matchup, best player is going to win. And Nikola Jokic is going to get it done. Look at that. A 9 seed and a 12 seed in this hypothetical playoff. Let's move over to the right side of the bracket now, as the 2-7 matchup is headlined by the return of Ime Udoka to the Garden as the Celtics host the Rockets. Now, the Boston Celtics coming to this game, of course, in this scenario, 10-3 at home, while the Rockets are 7-5 on the road. So two of the very best in those metrics. Now, Boston last year when these teams played, again, Ime Udoka, first year coaching, so let's give him a little bit of a break. But Boston was 2-0 in this matchup in dominant fashion, and they were able to hold a guy like Jalen Green to 12 points a game, shooting terribly from the field in those two matchups. So I don't know in this game, sure, two great defenses as well, right? But I don't know in this game if the Rockets are going to have enough perimeter scoring to keep up with the Boston Celtics. And again, even if they're able to get under Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum's skin, the Boston Celtics are able to survive, without one of their star players having a good night, right? Tatum doesn't need to drop 30 for this team to win. I think in this scenario, Jalen Green would have to drop 30 to 35 for the Rockets to win. Of course, we know Sengun, right? One of the most talented players, but he goes back and forth with Kristaps Porzingis, who, again, is fully back from injury. I just think Boston has too much. They're at home. I'm taking Boston to win that one. Now, the 3-6 matchup is probably the best matchup so far. If not, it's one of the best matchups so far. The Oklahoma City Thunder are at home in this matchup versus the Golden State Warriors. It's the storyline of this matchup is the dynasty that was versus the dynasty that could be in the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think that's a pretty good tagline for that one. So hopefully they match up in the playoffs so I can use that for you guys. But there's a 1-1 record this year. I will say that the game that Steph Curry played, he only played one. The Warriors won, right? So that's worth a note at this point in the season. Now, for the Thunder, again, you just have too many answers. You check all the boxes. You're leading the league in point differential, and you're a really, really good team at home. I just think you have too much. And again, like I mentioned, they're a little bit more motivated than the Warriors at this point in time. I'm going to take the Thunder to advance to a much anticipated matchup between the Boston Celtics and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Let's move into the Final Four. Ladies and gentlemen, this is I think you got arguably 3 of the best 4 teams in the league. Nuggets are in question, but regardless, left side of the bracket, we have some upsets. On the right side, well, we got the 2 most favorite teams to come out of that side, and arguably the 2 best teams in the league to come out of the right side, but in the league in general. Now, for this 9-12 matchup, let's start there, as, of course, there's 3 Western Conference teams and 1 East. Hopefully, we can see how that plays out. But in this Dallas and Denver matchup, you have 2 of the best European players in the world, arguably the best 2, with Luka on one side and Jokic on the other. When these teams play, it's always an instant classic, right? As we saw last year and even this year. I think the big question for this game, as I've kind of said it's a weakness for Denver, is the depth. Right, I think if Luka Doncic has an off night, I trust this Dallas team more to win the game than on the flip side, where if Jokic has an off night, which is pretty much never. But I think the depth for Dallas will win it for them, because when Jokic takes a step off the court, Kyrie can win the game for them, right? It could be PJ Washington to have a crazy series like it did last year in the playoffs against a different team, of course. I just think the depth at the end of the day will win it. Like Klay Thompson, again, another great shooter, will win it for the Dallas Mavericks. I will get them to the finals. Isn't my Luka bias coming in the way? Maybe. But I just think, again, in one game scenarios at home, you have maybe, it's an equal head coaching matchup. I like the Mavericks in that game. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. In the 2-3 matchup, you have the Boston Celtics hosting the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think, no doubt, the two best teams in the league, two best defenses in the league. These teams just check all the boxes. But this game came down to one thing for me. I think, again, not his fault, but I think the Boston Celtics can survive without Jason Tatum having a great game. But on the flip side, I don't know in this matchup on the road if the Thunder can survive without Shea having a great game, right? Maybe even a great, a 40-point game, right? Even better than what he normally does. I don't know if Oklahoma can survive the way that Boston can in this scenario. And again, there's also 4 to 5 bodies that can be thrown at one player, which is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It's going to be hard. Shai's going to have to be Superman on this night. I'm going to go what's more likely to happen. And I think that's Boston gets it done, even if Tatum or Brown has an off night offensively. But that's going to set up an NBA Finals rematch unintentionally, but for a lot of the same reasons as last year. Not a lot has changed as far as how Dallas plays basketball. That's going to make me believe that Boston doesn't get it done yet again. I'm a big Luka fan, big Kyrie fan, 2 of my top 5 favorite players of all time, to be honest. But Boston just has too much, right? On Boston's home court, I'm going to give Boston this hypothetical championship in the NBA's version of the college football playoff. That is going to be my, again, hypothetical. So let me know, where did I go wrong in that scenario? And, of course, what would you have done differently if these were your predictions? But that is episode 233. If you enjoyed, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. And like I said, let me know in the comments. I'll always get back to you guys as quick as I possibly can. But that's going to do it here for today's episode. I'll see you guys tomorrow for some more fantasy football. And again, it's going to be a great week here. Hopefully a lot of great NBA games this week. But until next time, get out of here.